Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today we're going to talk about Bitcoin, and we're going to be looking at the most bullish scenario. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Let's go ahead and jump in. So a few days ago, we put out what I thought was the most bearish scenario. Today, we're going to put out what I would consider potentially the most bullish scenario. And more than likely, neither of these scenarios play out exactly, but we can use them to gauge what might be theoretically possible over the next several months. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump in. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to be looking at time that Bitcoin took to peak after passing its prior all-time high. So we're going to start back over here in the summer of 2011. And we passed it over here in March of 2013. So that was the first one, okay? And then the second one was this all-time high here, and then we really passed it in April of 2017. So you can see that we have two phases where we spent a significant amount of time below our prior all-time high. And then the third one was, most recently, where it took us, let's see if we can get this pretty close, it took us to December of 2020 to really break above it, and then we went off to the races. So the question, right, the implication becomes, well, now that we're past the all-time high, if we use passing the all-time high as our reference point, what could theoretically happen based on prior data? Now, color me a skeptic, right? Color me a skeptic on this one, because I would be very surprised if it did this. But again, we don't want to leave any stone unturned on this channel. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a measured move from crossing the prior all-time high in February of 2013 to the top. Okay, and in that situation, Bitcoin did a modest 4,000%. Okay, so it did 4,000% gain over 273 days. Okay, over 273 days. So this was after the first cycle. Okay. 4,000% over 273 once it broke past the prior all-time high. The next one was here in April of 2017 when we broke past it, and from this point, we did approximately 1,400% over 238 days. So the next one was 1,400%, okay, over 238 days. So a big difference. What do you notice? Well, if you measure things like this, it gives you it certainly gives you a different story to tell. So 4,000% over 273 days, 1,400% over 238 days. Where are we so far? So after passing the prior all-time high, the price of Bitcoin has only gone up approximately 200%. And so far, we've come back down. Right now, we're at 158% over 133 days. Okay, so 158% over 133 days. So the point of this video is to show that even if you measure things by the move past the prior all-time high, it still seems like we have a long way to go, okay? The first one being 273 days, the next one being 238 days. So far, this one's 133 days. And this is one of the ways that some people come to thinking that the end of the cycle will be happening, maybe in August, September, October, that time frame. Because at that point, you're basically encompassing these two time frames, okay? 238 days, 273 days. So this is why this is one of the reasons, right, among others, this is one of the reasons why that number is being thrown around, or that time frame is being thrown around. So certainly if we did something like this, then we would be looking at a few more months, right? If it were to play out exactly like it played out last cycle and cycle before, we would be looking at maybe another 5 months or so of this crazy mania. But the nice thing at this point is just waiting should help us realize what's more likely going to happen. If Bitcoin is able to decisively go to you know, to go to six figures in a relative short period of time, then I think the writing will be on the wall. If we sort of do what we've been doing for the last 2 months and Bitcoin continues to struggle to really put in new all-time highs, I mean, it has, but if you zoom in, it did 50, it went to 58K, so it did 42K, and then the next one was pretty substantial all the way up to like 58K, and then the next one was like 61K, and the next one was 64K. But if you look at this, the price has mainly moved sideways now for about 11 weeks, okay? So the price has not really done anything remarkable for the last 11 weeks other than put in some new all-time highs that were only marginally above the prior all-time highs. So we also might suggest, okay, and this goes, certainly when you look at the data this way, it does not suggest a peak in 2022 or later. But what it would still suggest, even measuring it this way, would still be diminishing returns. Okay, diminishing returns. And so this one was 4,000%, this one was 1,400. So far we're at 158. To give you an idea of what the price of Bitcoin would have to go to get to 1,400% from the prior all-time high, we would be looking at, and let's go to sorry, I measured it way too high there. Let's go to 1,400%. So this is around 1,411. So that would put you at over $300,000. And this is another reason why there are a lot of people that think a $300,000 Bitcoin is possible, because they're basically thinking that it's going to do the exact same thing that it did during the last cycle, 1,400%. Or they also measure it like this, where they measure it from market cycle bottom, and then they just sort of overlay it, and then they come to the conclusion that way that it should go to over $300,000 by the fourth quarter, by the third or fourth quarter of this year. So this is one of the places where those predictions are coming from. But I would argue that, you have 4,000%, 1,400%. Even if the cycle does end in 2021, even if that is the case, it would still appear that we still have a lot of time to go, and we've only gone up 158% from the current time compared to 1,400% the time before that. And 1,400 goes into 4,000 almost three times. You can see that 158, I mean, if we assume this is 200%, which is not, but we did hit 200% or so, because we went from 20K to up to 60K. So let's assume this already is at 200%. This would be a 7x, okay, a 7x difference, whereas this one was closer to, say, a 3x difference. Okay, so I personally think that this ratio won't be so large, and we'll get something smaller, which means the price of Bitcoin has to go higher. For instance, if this were to go to, say, 400 or 500%, like let's suppose it went to 500%, then we would be looking at approximately another 3x between the two. And 500% from that level, from the level where Bitcoin passed, so 500%, where would that put us? That would put us closer to a $120,000 to $140,000 Bitcoin. So 120 to 140 seems a lot more likely to me, or even maybe higher, maybe 150 or even going up to 200. But I'm pretty skeptical about a $300,000 Bitcoin this market cycle. But again, we'll have to see how things play out on the charts. So another thing we can do is we can take a measured move from the prior two moves after passing the all-time high. So this was 1, and we can overlay it and see how we would have performed if we had kept pace with it. So this would have been after the first cycle. So what's interesting is after the first cycle, we would have already gone up to a $208,000 Bitcoin if we were emulating the first cycle. And then by this point, we would have come back down to actually close to where we currently are. And then it would expect another move up to over about $1 million per Bitcoin if we were to emulate the first cycle after passing the prior all-time high. If you emulate the next cycle after passing the prior all-time high, we can see where we are. We're going to change this color so it shows up a little bit better. We're going to overlay it from passing the prior. And actually, I probably didn't even draw this exactly, or I didn't overlay it perfectly anyway. So let me try to overlay this one as good as I can. So maybe something like that. It's hard to get it exact, but maybe something like that, which would of course imply $1 million Bitcoin by October 2021, which I certainly don't think is possible. But if you look at the next one, it would imply a $350,000 Bitcoin by August. Okay, so I just want everyone to be fully aware of all the different comparisons we can make with the data. Obviously, we've looked at ROI from the bottom. We've looked at ROI from the halving. Now we're looking at ROI after passing the prior all-time high. And what it suggests is 200 to 300 days after passing it, followed by diminishing returns. Okay, so that's what it suggests if you measure it from the prior all-time high, rather than measuring it from the halving or measuring it from the market cycle bottom. Hopefully this video is informative. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you do, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Remember to check out the premium list at intothecryptoverse.com if you like the content. We have weekly reports and videos, the Telegram alerts channel. You'll find out how I'm managing the markets. You'll get access to the first Into the Cryptoverse NFT coming hopefully in the next week or so, and a lot more. So make sure you guys check that out. Also, we do have some t-shirts and a coffee mug in the merch store if you guys want to check that out in the description below. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope this video was informative. Make sure you subscribe, click the bell icon to turn on your alerts, and I will see you next time. Bye.